This is a conversation with Dr. Jill about the brain, whole brain living, and neurological recovery. My name is Helen, and I work for the Irish Heart Foundation. So, just a quick piece about the Irish Heart Foundation. We are Ireland's national heart and stroke charity, and our mission is to eliminate preventable death and disability from cardiovascular conditions while providing care and support to those affected through information, education, peer, and emotional support. So many of you are very familiar with Dr. Jill's work, but for those of you who are not, I'm just going to do a short intro. Dr. Jill is an internationally renowned Harvard-trained brain scientist and author who became widely known after experiencing a massive stroke at age 37 that fundamentally changed her understanding of the brain. What made Dr. Jill's experience unique was her scientific background as a brain researcher. She was able to observe and later articulate what was happening to her brain in real time. Her stroke damaged the left hemisphere of her brain, which handles language, logic, and reasoning, while leaving her right hemisphere largely intact. This gave her an extraordinary insight into right brain consciousness. Dr. Taylor's recovery from the stroke took 8 years, during which she had to relearn basic functions like walking, talking, and reading. Her journey became the foundation for her 2008 TED Talk, which became one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. And her best-selling memoir, My Stroke of Insight, is still the #1 book on the topic of stroke on Amazon. So tonight we're going to talk about Dr. Taylor's book, Whole Brain Living, which I'm holding up there. And in this book, she describes a practical framework for understanding how different parts of our brain influence different aspects of our personality. The book offers us tools for recognizing which character is running our thoughts at any given moment and gives us tips on how to consciously choose which one to engage with so we can literally rewire our brains for greater well-being and more intentional living. So you are so welcome, Dr. Jill. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here tonight for our Irish audience.
Thank you, Helen. It's a thrill for me. So hello to everyone on the other side of the planet.
Look, to start off, I just thought I'd ask you if you could tell us a bit about your own recovery and how your recovery journey influenced you to write the book, Whole Brain Living.
Yes, of course. So my hemorrhage happened in the left hemisphere of my brain. And when I lost my left hemisphere, then I lost my language. I lost my details of my life. I lost me, the individual. I lost my perception of individual self. I lost the boundaries of where I began and where I end. But I was differently conscious. I wasn't unconscious, but I shifted into the consciousness of my unconscious brain, if you will. But I was still fine. And my perception of myself was that I was perfect and whole and beautiful, just the way that I was. I just didn't have some abilities that left brain was good for, including language. Mm-hmm. And we function in a society that is very left brain dominant. So it would be necessary for me to rebuild some of those circuits so I could regain language, I could regain an identity, I could regain a past and a future and have linearity across time, so I could function again as an individual in the world. So for me then, once the left hemisphere was wiped out, for me, through the eyes of a neuroanatomist, someone who studies the anatomy of the brain, it gave me an opportunity to see what's actually going on in the right hemisphere. What does it feel like to be over there in the absence of what the left hemisphere does? And so it was really, a very fascinating experience based on my educational expertise. Mm-hmm. So I think that was an advantage for recovery, but I think it was a disadvantage on the morning of the stroke because everything was so fascinating. I didn't just dial 911 first. So
I read that. You took a bit of time. You did. Yeah.
I took a bit of time to figure out, this is cool. What's actually going on? No, call 911.
Yeah.
Stroke is a medical emergency. So I think that I did have an advantage as a scientist to rebuild the circuitry because I still had a visual map inside of my right hemisphere about the brain and about what different parts of the brain do. And now I knew what I could do, and I still understood what I could not do. Like I understood I didn't have language. I understood that that was something I would need to reacquire in order to function again in the world. So I was highly motivated. My mother set me up for success in that she allowed me to sleep as much as my brain needed to sleep. As long as I wasn't sleeping because I was feeling depressed, she was okay with me letting the brain sleep when it wanted to sleep. She fed me good food. She gave me plenty of liquids so I wasn't dehydrated. And she really set me up for success because she believed that my brain knew better than anyone outside of me what it needed in order to recover. So I was just very blessed to, first of all, have this knowledge base before I went into the experience. And then I had a mother who set me up for success, and I was highly motivated then to regain functioning. And because of neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to rearrange its own networking, I could set it up for rewiring itself for normal function again.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you were aware of what was actually happening in real time. It really was. Just looking at the book. So for those of us maybe not familiar with the 4 characters that you describe in the book, can you describe how each character is connected to a different part of our brain anatomy?
So when you think about the brain, the cortex of the brain, the higher brain that is related to human, we have 2 modules, one in each hemisphere, that is emotional or experiential. And then above that, and other mammals do have the emotional tissue, but the human has new tissue expanded above, and that is our higher thinking cortex that distinguishes humans from other mammals. But we then, as humans, we have 2 emotional and 2 thinking modules of cells. Well, these are specific modules of cells. And the left hemisphere has linearity across time, which means I can remember why I chose these shoes to put on this morning. It has me, the individual, I, Jill Bolte Taylor, I exist in that left hemisphere. And I begin and end where my skin meets air, because a group of cells in that left hemisphere define the boundaries of where I begin and end. So me, the individual, and my ability to relate me to the external world, and the external world defines the social norm within which I have to fit myself, is going on in the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere, it doesn't care about me, the individual. I don't exist. All it has is the present moment. There's no past, there's no future. And it does have the experience of the present moment, and it has a cognition of the present moment. And without that group of cells in the left hemisphere that then defines the boundaries of where I begin and end, my perception of myself to the right hemisphere is that I am open and expansive and literally a big ball of energy as big as the universe. So as we look at each one of us, not just the differences between the right and the left hemisphere, but the left thinking tissue, the tissue in my left hemisphere thinking, is what the medical world considers our conscious portion of our brain, because it has language, because it has a past and a future, because it has me, the individual. And in order for me to be perceived as normal, I need language, and I need that individuation, and I need to be able to communicate with the external world. So I call that character 1 left thinking tissue. I have left emotional tissue, the motion tissue of that left hemisphere. It also has linearity across time, but it's emotional. And the job of this tissue is so miraculous. Don't ask me. I mean, it's amazing that the brain can do this, but these group of cells has agreed to step out of the consciousness of the present moment. I mean, just think about that. we're not just living creatures living in a present moment, but we are capable of stepping out of that consciousness of the present moment and relating ourselves to everything in our past that ever looked like a danger or a threat. So that we don't have to recreate the wheel in every moment. We have this magnificent brain that has both a consciousness of the present moment and to compare that to our past and to our future. Well, the unfortunate portion of this part of our brain is that all of our pain from the past exists in that group of cells. So, and it tells us that we're facing a danger or a threat by erupting with emotions. So my anger, yeah, that's where it is. My resentment, well, that's where it is. My feeling of guilty, that's where it is. So it's this magnificent tool so that we can compare that present moment safety to anything that's happened in the past. Now, unfortunately, many of us get caught in those loops because you got to remember everything in the brain is just a group of cells. So here we end up with these emotional loops that we can get caught in. So I can stay angry all the time. I can worry all the time. I can be mad all the time. I can be sad all the time. I can be hooked into my past trauma all the time. But that's where those cells are. And the thing about this magnificent character 2 that I call this left emotional tissue is that it's supposed to be information, inform us based on our past experience about the present moment. It's not meant to be a lifestyle. But many of us get hooked into that pain and we turn it into a lifestyle instead of just allowing it to be really important information so that we can save our lives on a moment by moment basis. So character 1, left rational thinking. Character 2, left emotional thinking, steps out of the consciousness of the present moment. So the right hemisphere doesn't have a past and it doesn't have a future. All it has is right here, right now. And in the right here, right now, my right experiential tissue is the experience. What does it feel like to be alive right now? So have our people who are listening think about what's the temperature of the air feel like against your skin? How much humidity is in the air around you? Are your clothes sticky to you? Do you feel cold? Is your body shivering in response to your environment? What does it feel like when we dive into water and we feel the pressure of water against our body or the temperature of the water against our body? And what does wetness feel like anyway? I don't feel wetness in the past. I feel wetness in the present moment. Things are wet. So that's the right emotional tissue, experiential tissue. And the judgment of right and wrong and good and bad and critical rational thinking is in the left hemisphere. It's not in the right hemisphere. So in this character 3 portion, I'm not up against the judge of right and wrong and good or bad. So I can be creative. I can be open to possibility. I can be open to a new melody passing through my mind. So I can write music, or I can be open to the creation through artistry of something that's never been done before. I don't have to color inside of the lines. So, and the right hemisphere doesn't have me, the individual. So it likes camaraderie. It wants to go and play with you. Let's go stomp through the woods and play in the mud puddles and chase the snakes and have fun with the dogs and just go do whatever we enjoy doing. And then character 4 is the thinking tissue in that right hemisphere. And so what is in the present moment, literally open and big in the universe beyond just what I can do inside of my body, the experiential of that character 3. This is our deep sense of awe and wonder and, oh my gosh, I'm alive. I'm not just alive. I'm this massive conglomeration of 50 trillion molecular geniuses with eyes that can see and digits that can move the world around me. And oh my gosh, I even have bladder capacity. I mean, these cells are miraculous for what I am as a human. And so it brings us that sense of awe and wonder of our divine self, or if we this would be our God consciousness if we if we pray to a God, we're praying through this portion of who I am and making this connection, or whatever religion or whatever spirituality resonates with our souls. That's the portion of the souls that we're resonating with. So we end up with these 4 different levels of consciousness, and we have the power then to choose which one we want to be in any moment, and to bring them all in communication with one another, so that our brains are making very conscious decisions moment by moment. And when we do that, we end up without any personal conflict, because we're all on board having a real whole brain experience.
It's just amazing when you described that that sense of awe, and just that complete presence in right here, right now, that it just made me think about, maybe for people who want to access that feeling or that part of their brain, what would you recommend, maybe for those of us who can't, or maybe struggle to access that part of our brain?
That feeling of peace. And I'm going to take this directly to your patient population, Helen,
Yeah, thank you.
because when someone experiences a neurological trauma, it feels as though a part of ourselves is now missing. And it's not that we are missing, because we're still in here. I'm still me, even though I didn't have an identity. I didn't know who Jill Bolte Taylor was, or what a Jill Bolte Taylor was. And I didn't have her likes and her dislikes anymore, because she was offline. And I didn't have her education. I didn't have her language. I didn't have her expertise. That was gone. But that's not who I am. That's a part of who I am. And in the absence of that piece of me, I still felt that I was perfect and whole and beautiful, even though I had no language and I had no way of communicating with others, because the right hemisphere portion of me was still present. And so as I look at these 4 different parts of the brain, it's kind of like a hand. If I have a hand, and I don't know my digits, I don't have that level of differentiation, then I can still push with my hand, and I can pull with my hand, and I can push things around and use my hand. But as soon as I can differentiate those 4 distinct fingers in relationship to that thumb, now I have so much exponentially more power using that hand in the world. And the same thing is true with our brain. When we understand that we have these 4 different personalities, and that we all have all these different personalities, then we get to start watching, oh yeah, I know my character 1. When I go to work, when I'm organized, it's the only room in the house that's really organized. Or how do I feel about organization in my refrigerator? Or does it drive me insane when other people come in and they leave an empty bottle? All these kinds of things. That's what that part of the brain cares about. So how strong is my character 1 personality? How strong, how automatic is my reactivity, instead of my observing what I'm feeling inside of my body, instead of erupting it? How strong is my character 2? How strong is my playful spirit of being connected and creative and open? How strong is that part of me? And then character 4, how capable am I of just looking at my life and saying, there's a lot of things in the world I can worry about, but in this moment, I'm just going to sit in a sense of gratitude, and I'm going to be here. So I think that it's like learning. As we each learn these 4 different parts of ourselves, then we can see, okay, if my peaceful euphoria is in the present moment, and my mind is over in my left hemisphere, and it's calculating mathematics and doing accounting, or it's all about the right and the wrong and the good and the bad and the judgment, well, that is noise on top of my peace. So can I quiet that? And my emotions, my fear about the future, and oh my gosh this, or oh my gosh that, and oh my gosh whatever, I need to quiet that part of who I am. Just set it aside. It's right there. Boom, we can pick up that pain anytime we want. It's always there, always a choice. My desire to, I want to go do this, or I want to go do that, or I want to go play with this, or I want to pull out my guitar, or I want to, all my distractions of fun. in the world. Okay, it's like, okay, calm, calm, calm. We're not going to just go throw ourselves into that. And underneath all that noise of the rest of the brain is this experience of deep inner peace. I mean, it's always there. It's always available. So as we get to know who are the loud ones, because everything is either language, which is very loud, pain, emotional pain, which is very loud, or the desire to go do, go play, do something is very loud. So we have to calm those. Underneath it, though, is this group of cells that says, whatever's going on over there, y'all are what you are. And boy, what a difference it makes when I realize, oh, I can quiet that character one left thinking portion of my brain. I mean, when we look at the world, boy, it's a multi-billion-dollar market, if not trillion-dollar market for meditation and yoga and tools we can use in order to quiet that left brain. Well, we don't have to have something outside of ourselves. And if I know what character 4 feels like, if I know what my peaceful euphoria and what's getting in the way of it, then it's all an internal job to quiet those parts. And this becomes really relevant for if I've been injured, my little character 2 is going to say, oh my gosh, I'm wounded, I'm hurt, I'm not what I used to be, I'm less than, I'm in pain, I'm not happy, I'm scared. And that's normal for that part of the brain, because all of a sudden we are more vulnerable as soon as we have some kind of a physical illness. And then character 1, that left thinking, can come online and say, okay, what are my meds? When am I going to take them? And it's going to organize them. And it's like, when are my doctor's appointments? And it's going to schedule them. And what do I need to do for my rehabilitation? And we're going to actually do those things. And so that portion of the brain we can hook into in order to be disciplined and organized. And if we can't do that for ourselves, hopefully there's someone in our environment who will help us.
Yes.
And then character 3 is like, okay, let's go make rehab fun. You know, so what, it hurts. So what? I'm doing what I need to do, or I'm changing my diet. It's not like I'm going to, you know, if I change my diet and I don't get to do this or that or the other, you know, really, is it so important that I smoke my cigarettes when I know I have cardiovascular disease? What, I'm making a choice. I don't care what you choose, but you need to make that choice consciously so that there's no conflict, you know. So it's like, how do I take all parts of me, bring me together in order to have my life experience, whatever I'm going to choose my life experience to be.
And every single part of us that you described there is they're all equally valuable. You know, we need to bring them all online, as you say, you know. And just when you were describing there about that you know, the multi-billion-dollar industry of, you know, yoga and mindfulness and all that, there is a chapter that your book, the first couple of pages says, peace is just a thought away, which I found was a really, really powerful mantra, you know. So thank you for that. You mentioned in the book, we have more power over what is going on inside our brain than we were ever taught.
Yes.
So I suppose for someone just learning how the brain can influence our lives, what would be the first step you'd recommend for somebody to take in learning more about understanding their brain?
You know, I think willingness is number one. Am I willing? Am I willing to observe instead of react?
Yeah.
Am I willing to simply observe? Can I identify? Because the thing about the brain is it's shooting all the time. And when we look at the brain, you know, there's activity in all of these different places, but who has the microphone? And if I'm upset or I'm worrying or I'm I'm hooked into my pain, then I'm in the past or I'm in my future fear, and I am giving the microphone to character 2. That's not a bad thing. Just notice. So it has to be willingness to notice. And then, okay, well, the phone rings, and let's say I'm in a fight with you, and we're both in our character 2s having a fight, and then the telephone rings, and I'm enough of a professional to know that it's not appropriate for me to yell at the person on the phone. So all of a sudden the phone rings, and I pick up the phone, and all of a sudden I step into my character 1 consciously on purpose, and I say, hello. right? Completely shifted from my character 2 part of my brain to my character 1 part of my brain. And then I have my conversation and we work out whatever we're going to work out. And then I hang up the phone. And in that moment is the moment I do my work. Do I choose to go right back into my character 2 with you because I am not done fighting with you, right? Or
Yes.
have I now has our relationship been saved by the bell, by the telephone? And now I'm in my character 1 and I don't want to fight with you anymore because I wanted us to go out tonight and have a good dinner, or I wanted to take the dogs for a walk and have fun. I don't want to fight with you all the time. So do I have choice? And I do have this choice. So the power that we have is we have the power over which groups of cells are we going to put our energy in and focus on. And but in order to do that, I have to be willing to get to know my 4 characters, and then I have to have the awareness to become aware of what are my choices. I need to know what my choices are. And once I know what my choices are, now I have the power to choose. And you might say, well, I just kind of automatic reactivity. I go back into my pain. I go back into my suffering. I'm all, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, well, am I willing then again to choose something other than that circuitry? Because that circuitry is delicious. I mean, let's face it. When we're fighting, it's yummy, right? When we're in our pain and suffering, it's yummy. I mean, it's so powerful, and it's like who I am, and I really know who I am when I'm angry or when I'm sad or when I'm mad or when I'm whatever. But each of these circuits inside of the brain, the emotional circuits, they run for literally less than 90 seconds. And so as from the moment I'm triggered, let's say you say something to me and I move into my character 2 reactivity. So I'm thinking a thought, you bring up somebody, and every time I think of that person, I get angry. So I think the thought, then I have the emotional charge of, and then I have the physiological response, and I'm going to rant and rave, and because noradrenaline's been dumped into my bloodstream now, it floods through me, but it flushes out of me within 90 seconds. So after 90 seconds, at least I can say, wow, I can let that go now, but I know your audience is saying, oh, I can stay angry for a whole lot longer than 90 seconds, right? But what we're doing is we're rerunning the circuit. We're rethinking the thought, re-stimulating the emotional circuit, refueling it with a physiological response. But 20 years can go by, and every time I still think of that person, I just run that same circuit. Because it's a circuit, it's a collection of cells inside of our brain. So ultimately, our health and well-being and our relationship with our brain is going to be, how do we relate to these different groups of cells that make up who we are?
And you described that 90 seconds, and it sounds so simple, the awareness, and the willingness, but absolutely very, very, very difficult. You did, though, say in the book that the more you practice these techniques, like the brain huddle and the 90-second rule, the more it builds that plasticity in your brain, like the more it lays down, new ways of doing things. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, neuroplasticity is the ability of brain cells to rearrange which other cells they're communicating with, which means as we're listening to something new right now, we're, learning new information. And the brain in real time, your neurons are actually making new associations, which is how learning happens. So underlying all learning is this phenomenon of neuroplasticity. So it's something that's ongoing all the time. And because of that, we can influence which sets of circuits inside of our brain become stronger. And the more often we run a circuit, the stronger it becomes. And then eventually it will begin to run on automatic as habitual thinking or feeling. So just knowing that says to me, oh, every time I'm feeling myself getting angry with so-and-so, I can observe myself, think the thought, and then I feel that coming onto my body, and I can, instead of just going on the attack, I can actually observe what is my body's natural physiological response every time that circuit gets triggered. And if it gets totally triggered, then I usually become reactionary and I do whatever I'm going to do. But I can actually observe myself cranking up to, oh. And every time that person does this, it really presses my button. But it's like, I can just watch that person engage in that. What does it really matter to me? Do I want in this moment to rant and rave and run that circuit? And it's like, no. And then I know what my options are. I can run that circuit and I can get angry, or I can really kind of analyze what's going on with my character one rational thinking brain and kind of observe. Well, that person may be doing something that they know is going to push my buttons, and they're pushing my buttons because that's the dance we do, you know. And we know the people who are closest to us, they know our triggers, and they just, you know, whenever they want, they know how to pounce on those. But I have power over my own reactivity. So if I change my dance with you, if you're pushing my button and I'm not reacting anymore, then what are you going to do? And then I can watch you and wonder, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to like choose to become a 1, 3, or 4, or are you going to like stay in your 2 and keep pushing my button? So now I've taken the power away from my own reactivity, which has taken my reactivity away from you, which it doesn't belong with you anyway, right? So, but when we live unconsciously without awareness of our choices, then we just kind of run on automatic, and life is what life is. And then, you know, what this means, Helen, is if there's 4 of me inside of me, and there's 4 of you inside of you, then our relationship, and every relationship we have with another person, there's 8 of us.
I read that. Yeah, 8 of us. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And some of us get along really well. And some of us play together well. And some of us work together well. And some of us pray together well and expand and open and possibility and feel gratitude together well. And some of us fight together well. And that's character 2 against character 2. And 2 character 2s in that relationship will never find resolution because they're designed to yell butt. And if I'm yell button and you're yell button, we got a bunch of yell button, and we don't want to be in relationship anymore.
And we get nowhere. And I have to say, just in the interest of time, I think the chapter on relationships and whole brain living was a very interesting one to read, and definitely worth reading. Just when you talked about neuroplasticity there, and just going back to your own recovery, how did your deep knowledge of neuroplasticity shape your recovery? I mean, you talked about it earlier, but just in terms of, you know, were you aware of, you know, as you tried to recover, was that something that was always front and center with you?
My whole consciousness was about getting better.
Yeah.
And when you think about, I lost my left thinking tissue, I lost my rational brain. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, she died that day, right? So her and her facts and her details and her position on the Harvard ladder, that was gone. My left emotional tissue, it was a blessing. All the pain from my past, boom, disappeared. Oh, that was really actually a real gift. Seriously. And all I had was the right hemisphere. And my body felt like a ton of lead in the bed because I had this enormous hemorrhage in the left hemisphere. So my body was paralyzed. The right side of my body was paralyzed and then weak and had paresis. And that was my journey then. How do I regain my body? How do I regain language? How do I regain anything? And for a while, all I had was the character 4 connected to the universe, you know, and there was a real sense of gratitude because I did not die that day. I did not die that day. Now, I might have been in a vegetative condition, but I did not die, which meant I had new possibility. What did I need to do in order to create an environment internally and around me in order for me to gain any kind of health and function? Well, in the beginning, when you experience a stroke or you have major hemorrhage, it's all about the cells and calming all input, because I can't deal with input. I need to simply shut it out and let have brain surgery, remove a blood clot the size of a golf ball, clean out the environment as much as possible so that the cells could begin again. And after I had that craniotomy, they sent me home and they said, we have absolutely no idea how much you're going to get back. We have no idea, no guarantee. You might get something, you might not. It's like, good luck. Your job is now to figure out who you're going to be. And it's like, okay, so, blessed be my mother came in and she fed me and she nurtured me and she took care of me and she worked with me. And I was her infant in a woman's body. I mean, that's how we described me. And she set me up for success in a way that worked with me instead of against me. And this is the product. But it was a long 8 years. And my little character too could have said, woe is me, this is horrible, I'm not going to try anymore, because all the doctors are saying, oh, it's been 3 months, forget it. It's been 6 months, forget it. It's been a year, forget it. You're not getting anything back. And it's like, well, watch me prove you wrong.
Amazing. And it's just amazing, the recovery that you made and just how much of that intrinsic motivation that you drew on as well. And I think I think a lot of our audience will be very, very happy to hear what you just said there. So thank you. Just last couple of questions. After a stroke or a heart diagnosis, many of our community in the Irish Heart Foundation would obviously be feeling overwhelmed, anxious, as well as, at times hopeless. And you also described feelings like this at times in the book. What would be some practices that you have found helpful for building brain resilience and emotional balance to deal with those moments when, Abby takes over, character 2 takes over?
Hopelessness, fear, anger, sadness, it's all real. Feel it. They're real. Feel it. But recognize that this is a group of cells inside of your brain. And this is a normal response to loss. And feel it, but recognize these loops run on 90-second loops. And if you're hooking into them and making this a lifestyle, and that's all you're hooking into, then there's a whole other rest of your brain that you're neglecting. And so I always tell people, I don't mind if you're miserable, as long as you remember to enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you are capable of being miserable. Enjoy the fact that you are capable of feeling sadness, that you're feeling whatever you're feeling. Everything, every ability we have is this magnificent group of cells that is still functioning. And what that should say to you is, I am so capable of feeling sad and hopeless and miserable. Well, okay, great. That part of my brain is still functioning. What other parts of my brain are still functioning? Don't get hooked in there. Don't make it a lifestyle. But if it hits you, let the wave come through you. If you don't let the wave come through you, then, and you try to stop it, then that's blockage. That's, denial. That doesn't work either. Feel what you are feeling and then recognize this is a precious part of my brain. And these are the cells that, because of these cells are still functioning, one, I can still experience deep emotion. And believe me, for someone who has not had deep emotion, it gets pretty bad. It gets pretty boring when you're just kind of neutral all the time. These deep emotions, because I can feel sadness, I can also feel joy. Because I can feel hot, I can still feel cold. I need that range. It's a richness. So feel your feelings. let it be okay. Just don't turn it into a lifestyle. How much time are you spending there? And consciously remember, the more time you spend running any circuit, the stronger that circuit's going to get, and then it's going to run on automatic. So take some responsibility. What else is going on inside of your brain that's still working? And I always, whenever I talk to stroke survivors, especially, or any kind of brain trauma, what is still working? If we focus recovery on what is gone, then that's all we're focused on. But if we focus on what we still have, then we're building strength. And as the brain becomes stronger, it's like when the waters rise, the whole tide rises. So if I want to recover something, well, let's figure out what I can do around it in order to make it stronger, better. I mean, these are cells. How do I work with myself? Now, if I'm going to get lost in the woe is me, what's going to happen? We're going to end up running the woe is me. I'm not going to get any better because I'm running the woe is me. Now, is that what I want? Make a decision. A real honest decision. Outside of you, I'm working with you. I'm not responsible for your recovery. You are. What do you want? If you want to recover, then work on that. If you want to learn how to play the piano, then learn how to play the piano. I can't teach you if you don't want to learn it. If you want to get some rehabilitation back on paralysis, then work what you can do in little micro movements and let that keep getting more and more and more. But we are responsible for our own recovery. So, and it's a journey. Okay, I had this wild stroke experience. I fell off the Harvard ladder. Way off the Harvard ladder into, infant in a woman's body. And it's like, okay, I got nowhere to go but up. So whatever you don't have, okay, figure it out. Figure out what's getting in the way of it. Are you getting in your own way of it emotionally? How can you work with yourself, create a healthy team of people to come in and love on you? Not to woe is me with me. Yes. I don't need to do that, right? Yeah. So all I'm saying is be aware, be willing to be aware of what circuits you're running and whether or not that's what you want to do.
That's very, very insightful. And, I think it's important what you just said there about bringing in those people and the supports that can help you get to that, to a better place and focus on what you still can do. So thank you for that.
Let people like your Irish Heart Foundation come in and love us back to wellness.
That's it.
I mean, people are not alone. How fortunate they are to have you guys.
Yes. Well, look, we are here to support, and that is our goal. Very last question. Before we pass over to questions from the audience, if you could leave our audience with just one key tip about how to care for their brains, what would it be?
Dehydration. I'm serious.
No, I'm actually, you remind me of something my sister said. Sorry. Just, so true.
Water.
Yeah.
Pay attention to your dehydration, especially if you're feeling moody at all. Good for you. Because not good for you for feeling moody, but Helen just had a sip of water. So water, good water, just drink a lot of water. You're a fluid. We are this mass of cell matter and liquid pushing it around. And you got to have the fluid to push it around. And always, if my lips begin to feel chapped or I start to feel tired, I get a lull in my day, I always go straight to water because I know my body is saying all these little subtle clues for, hey, I need some more water. So water, what are you eating? Food makes a difference. If you're eating a bunch of preservatives and things that your gut is fighting to try to figure out how to work with, so pay attention to what you're eating, what you're drinking. Sleep. We are a biological creature. We are not robots that you plug us in the wall and we go until we're gone. Like our computers, we are biological systems, which means we have a push and we have a pause, and the pause needs to sleep. So protect your sleep. Get off the computer, get off the TV, get off the noise, get off the sugar, get off the caffeine, and plenty of time for your brain to go to sleep. Get a good night's sleep. And this is so important because this is when literally the garbage cleaners come out and they clean up all the waste that these little cells, billions of cells inside of your brain, they're little cells. They eat and they create poop. And so when you go to sleep, it's like time to clear out the poop and drink the liquid, the water, because you need that in order to get it to flow. So, and exercise, you have to have movement in your body. Again, you got to work the pumps. You got pumps in the valves in the legs to move things up. You've got cerebral spinal fluid. You got to have the muscles along it to pump it up. You know, movement. You got to have 20% of your oxygen's going to your brain. You got to get the blood up there. Anyway, that's it.
No, I think that's brilliant, and that's what our nurses are constantly saying that on our nurse line, and it's great to hear it from you. And thank you so much. So what we might do now is just take some questions from the audience. So I'm going to pass it over to Maeve now.
Yeah, Jill. So yeah, loads of questions flying in, and lots of people saying they've really enjoyed the talk, and are very thankful for you joining us this evening. So the first one there, we've got a couple of people looking for clarity on your stance on meditation. So one lady saying here that you mentioned awareness too. I find since my frontal lobe stroke last year, my awareness is severely blunted. So my ability to self-reflect isn't so good. Spend a lot of time in limbo, but enjoying mindfulness. And I suppose people are wondering, do you not think mindfulness is beneficial? Or do you think it is?
Oh, I think everything we've talked about today has been mindfulness. It's becoming mindfully aware of what's going on inside of our brain. So absolutely 100%. And let me also say then, because essentially what mindfulness is it says, okay, my left hemisphere character one, it's being chatty. Okay, I hear it being chatty. Okay, it's over there. Oh, my little character two, left emotional, it's feeling worried about, oh, am I going to get out of here in time? You know, I'm on the yoga mat, right? Doing yoga, trying to be mindful. And the whole goal is to quiet characters one and two so I can step into the right hemisphere consciousness and simply be. Because as soon as I let go of the worry and the stress of character one and two, then I have a natural pause in my physiology. And that pause in my physiology shift into the bigger picture perspective allows me then to have that pause, and then I can go right back into the left hemisphere and do details. And I often find that when I got out of the details and I moved into the big picture, oh, I found a solution to those questions and those problems that I was actually looking for, hunting for in my left brain. So absolutely, mindfulness is the key to success in doing this, but eventually you'll get to the point where you don't even need to be mindful. You can just change by the feeling, not by the thought.
Great, thank you. So another one here, and they've just gone into, I suppose, a couple of specifics about their own situation. So essentially their neck has been left weak after a head operation they'd had 7 years ago. And it has really never recovered despite numerous physiotherapists, none of whom have succeeded to remove the discomfort. Essentially they kind of say that it comes down to having the right mental approach. I suppose they're trying, but they keep getting to the point of giving up and being unable to carry on. The person says that they do love mountains and they still go up the hills on foot despite the discomfort and despite the need to kind of lie down when they're done. And they're just wondering, have you any ideas of anything else they could be doing?
I do. So, and I do this with my neck every time I fly anywhere because, you know, I am not made for those seats in an airplane. It's just the way it pushes me and whatever. And I know that this person's talking about a chronic issue, but what I do whenever I have any kind of physical problem, and which is also how I managed to get my whole body back after my stroke, was micro movements. Any movement that you can do that causes you pain is already ingrained in your brain. That circuit is already designed. So the ultimate goal is to not do major movements, because your brain already does that. What you want to do is to create little micro movements around the problem area. So if I do this, and I end up with this big cramp and I'm in pain. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go a little forward and go over, and I'm going to tilt my head. And I'm going to do all these. I'm going to literally spend half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour doing these tiny little micro movements and find, how can I move that neck without pain? Don't push into the pain. I don't need to. Right now, I need to know what that edge is. And then once I hit that edge, can I micro movement a little different and then make a different movement? And what you're doing is you're saying to the pain circuit, the circuit that you run and it creates pain, you're saying, oh, I could do this instead. I can do this instead. And you're actually recreating a new map, holographic image of that group of muscles at the level of your brain. And once you work like this for a while, then you tend to increase your range of motion, and you tend to interact with yourself and that specific pain differently. So there's a wonderful functional, it's called, this is Neuromovement. There's a wonderful website person who has spent her whole life doing this. Her name was Anat, A-N-A-T, Baniel, B-A-N-I-E-L. And she does for other people what I did for myself. And that's why, only reason I mention it, because it's about micro movement, finding movements around the painful movement pattern, because that's already wedged. How do I retrain my brain? And then generally you find it works out the kinks.
Excellent. And it's kind of a similar question. So I'm wondering if your answer would be the same. This person essentially has movement, but has lost sensation.
So the secret to sensation is, the body is wired for pain, for with free nerve endings, for soft vibration, for harder vibration, for temperature, hot and cold. So we have all these different sensations. So the question I would ask is, what sensation are you missing? Or is it a sensation of feedback from the muscle? So anyway, the secret for me for regaining any sensation is, one, to identify, can I identify which nerve endings are the problem? At what level of the spinal cord does that happen? Because we're going right back to the health and the well-being of the neurons. And then the key, I believe, is always stimulation around what is the area of touch or whatever it is that I can do. And because healing happens from the outside in, not from the inside out. So that's, there's so many different answers to not knowing exactly what that sensation is.
Really interesting question here. So I suppose the person has noticed that you also wrote the book, My Stroke of Insight, and they are wondering, would you add to either of your books at this stage following additional research? The person: I had my stroke in November 2023, but still have problems with my left hand. As you say, what has got me through my recovery is staying positive and recognizing that it is new to me. Or this is the new me, sorry. And they're also agreeing with you on the drinking point, drinking more water.
Yeah. Let's clarify water. So in the answer to the first question was, I never planned on writing a book ever. I was a brain scientist, and then I had a stroke and I had a new life. And then as I was recovering, people would call me up and say, why are you recovering and I'm not recovering? And so I literally was spending 8 hours a day on the phone talking to people about what I was doing. And my mother said, you need to write it down. You have no life. And I said, okay. And I'd said it so many times that it was like most of the book I could write. So I wrote my stroke of insight and gave it to the world. And it ended up spending 63 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. And it's still amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful book, I have to say. Would I add anything to it? Well, it missed the point. I gave the TED Talk. The TED Talk made me world famous, and everybody had reverence for me. And it was like, I don't need reverence. I have access to my own character 4. I know how cool I am as a living being. What I want you to do is have reverence for you, because you're this magnificent living being. So for me, it all missed the point. And I kept asking myself, how do I clarify for people so that they may gain this reverence? And then I wrote Whole Brain Living. So Whole Brain Living is my next natural step from what I've gained over the next 10 to 12 years from my experience with recovery. So then the question is, I truly believe Whole Brain Living will be the greatest gift I give to the world. I believe it is what I, through the eyes of a neuroscientist, understanding the anatomy of the brain, having this profound experience, rebuilding my brain. And now it's about bringing all parts of our brain, not just the conscious character 1, but what the medical world considers as our unconscious brain, characters 2, characters 3, and characters 4, into full consciousness. This now is the evolution of what we are as humanity, if we allow ourselves to do that. So I think Whole Brain Living is the answer to that question.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but just before I finish off anyway, just Jill, just to let you know, you might be on a bestseller list in Ireland sometime soon, because a lot of people are ordering your book as the talk is going on. So look out for that. And also people just saying they love your passion. They completely agree with your message that a lot of it is in our mind, and keeping that positive outlook is so important. So unfortunately we didn't get to ask them all because they were flying in there, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to people soon. So I'm going to hand you back over to Helen now.
Perfect.
So what can I say? That was an incredibly inspiring talk. We are so grateful you gave us your time tonight, and thank you everyone who joined us tonight as well. And look, I hope you keep writing those books, and hopefully one day you'll visit Ireland and give us a shout in the Irish Heart Foundation.
I will, I promise I will. And, and on heading out, all I can say is, whatever your condition, whatever circuitry you have, we are this magnificent, lovely human capacity of collection of cells. And if you have cells that are not working, don't focus on those. Focus on the ones that are working, and focus on the ability to connect with other beautiful people, because we are not just what we cannot do. And we are so much more. We are what we are, and it's enough. It's enough.